So hello and welcome back. In today's lesson, we are going to be painting the color wheel using acrylic paint. This should be old news for you if you are in my class. We've already discussed the color wheel several times, but today we are starting a new material, acrylic paint, and we always want to start by understanding the material first before we try and create a piece. So that is why we are starting with the color wheel. As you can see here, I have so many different colors to create, but I'm only giving you 3 paints. I'm going to give you red here, yellow, and blue, and everything else we're going to mix up together. For this lesson, you will need this worksheet, which is linked below or is in my classroom. You will also need a pencil to write your name, and you will need your acrylic paintbrush that I should have for you, a palette knife, a piece of palette paper, a cup of water, and some paper towels. Please go ahead and pause this video if you're not yet set up. Go set up and then we can continue together. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to push this off screen a little bit. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to go ahead and write your name here up top and your period. Let's call it period 1 right now. And I want you to take a close look. If this is the first time that you are actually painting with acrylic paint with me, I want you to take a close look at this piece of palette paper. It's easy to use this incorrectly, so I just want to show you first before you start. If you feel both sides of this palette paper, you're going to notice that one side is waxy and one side is not. The waxy side, the wax paper side, should be facing up towards you. You're going to put your paint here and mix with your knife. If you do this upside down and you put the paper side up, the paint will absorb into it and you won't be able to mix easily. So always double check. They both look the same. You have to feel it. Double check that the waxy side is up. All right, so today we're going to start with red and yellow. We're going to mix up our oranges, and then we're going to maybe switch to green and over here. This might take us more than one class period. I'm going to make it all one video, so just make note if you need to pause between classes. Make note of your timestamp so that you can carry on with me. All right, at your table, you should have containers like this one of some paint. You're going to use your knife to take some and apply it to your piece of palette paper. For us here on this video, I'm just going to use some paint straight from the bottle. So I'm going to take some red, not too much. I can always take more. I cannot put it back. And I'm going to take some yellow, and I'm going to put them fairly far apart from each other on my piece of palette paper. If you need more palette paper at any time, please go ahead and grab some. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my nice new brush and I'm going to paint in both of these tiles here, the red and the yellow, and then we'll start to mix. All right, I'm going to start with yellow. And if I pull this up a little bit, I'm going to do something called loading up. I'm going to load up my brush full of paint, and then I'm going to carefully try and paint that like square-like shape here. So I'm going to load up by taking my paintbrush, I'm going to dip into the yellow and I'm going to drag it back. I'm trying to like spread out my bristles of my brush to allow the paint to go into the bristles there. And then I'm going to flip my brush and I'm going to do the other side also. I want my paint to really stay on the tip of the brush there. If we take a look, if you can see, it's not yet touching the metal. Over here I got a little bit close, but you don't want to sort of scoop the paint. You don't want to like really just go in there. You want to load up the bristles, and you do want to have some control. When I grade you on this paper here, I'm looking for you to have the correct colors, but this is a good opportunity for you to practice your craftsmanship. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to get the bulk of my shape here painted yellow. And you see I'm using my brush in multiple directions. I can also turn my paper and I can grab more paint as I need to sort of fill in right up to those edges. Sometimes I like to wiggle my brush along an edge to sort of really get in there. You're going to see your paper is going to react a little bit. It's going to get a little bit wavy because this is just like a printout. You really don't want to paint on this per se, but we're practicing, right? And then before I do my red, I do want to wash my brush. So I'm going to pull this down here. To wash my brush, I have this cup of water, and we're going to do all of our brush washing pretty much in this cup of water. Even if the water gets dirty, we can switch it out. But I don't want to just put this in here and hope for the best. I want to take my brush and push it down into the bottom, sort of flat though, do you see that? Down into the bottom of my cup and I want to wiggle it around. So I'm going to do one side and then I'm going to flip and wiggle it around using the surface of the bottom of the cup to sort of help me dislodge the paint from those bristles. You can see I can peek at it, see if there's any staining, right? And then I want to dip off on the side, and I do want to use my paper towel to sort of squeeze. If you see any color, do you see that? Do you see any color come out your brush? That means there's more paint in there. So I'm going to keep going for a minute because I really want this red to be pure. I don't want any yellow in it because then it'll be one of my oranges. So again, I'm going to squeeze that. Beautiful. All right, I'm going to repeat that process with the red and then we'll talk about mixing. So I'm going to load up my brush here. I'm going to drag down some of that red paint, flip, grab some on the other side, and then I'm going to come in and start to apply my paint as neatly as I can to this surface. You should also notice that when you add a second layer that the paint is going to become more opaque, not as see-through, and therefore it might be a little bit darker. So do try and get a consistent color happening here. If you're curious, we are using Blick acrylics. This one's called Bright Red. We're also going to be using primary yellow and primary blue. So if you wanted to get your own paints, that is what we're using. They are acrylic paints by Blick. Not too expensive, really good for learning. All right, I'm going to wash my brush over here in my cup of water, really trying to get all the red out. And as you can see, my cup of water has turned red, like a pink color, right? Maybe a little orangey. And I want to point out right now that some colors are going to be more powerful than others. So in this case, if and when I'm going to mix these two, I'm going to notice that I need a lot of yellow compared to the amount of red that I need to change. The red is a lot more powerful than that yellow. And the more you work with different materials, some materials it'll be the opposite in different ways, but usually reds are more powerful than the other colors. So keeping that in mind, when I go to mix, which I'm going to start doing now, when I go to mix, I need to use less red than I think I do. All right, so yellow and red, I'm going to put a star above them and a 1. Yellow, red, and blue are our primary colors. I didn't paint my blue yet because I'm going to mix over here. I don't want my paint to dry. And but what we're looking at here is the color between them, like directly in the middle, this orange. That is our secondary color. And the ones in between those two are our tertiary colors, right? So it's sort of nice to like mark those out for yourself. I want to remind you that the names, right, we have orange, but this one's called yellow-orange. The primary color is going to come first in that pair. So it's yellow-orange, not orange-yellow. And over here we have red-orange, not orange-red. All right, just something to make note of. We are going to mix a color between these two, and then we're going to sort of decide where it lands in here. The first time you do this, you might be like, well, I don't know, it looks orange to me. But in the classroom, I'll have a completed color wheel for you to compare next to. All right, so to mix, we're going to be using our palette knife really for the first time. If you take a look, this palette knife is nice and bendy, which is nice. And I see a lot of people use this wrong, so I'm going to show you the correct way and then the incorrect way to use this knife. So I'm going to try and mix orange. It may lean in either direction, we'll see. But I'm going to grab a significant amount of my yellow. I scooped it up and then I put it somewhere else. I want to keep some yellow over there, just in case I need it. And I'm going to take a little bit of red and I'm going to add it to my yellow. And here's how you mix. I'm going to take this and I'm going to pretend I'm frosting a cake. I'm going to sort of like turn my wrist a little bit like this, back and forth a little, right? It feels really good. It's really satisfying to watch this happen. But then I'm going to gather all that up and I'm going to sort of smush it down. I'm going to sort of swish back and forth, gather, and smush. So some smushing and swishing. I'm sort of mixing all that up until it's one solid color. It might take you a few minutes to do. Really move that around. What not to do, and I see a lot of students try and mix this like they would like a soup with a spoon, or they like do this, right? And if you could see, I'm not really moving the paint around too much, or they use this side and they sort of do that and it all gets caked up. That really isn't going to help you. You really need to be a little bit more aggressive, and you need to remember you're using a knife, not a spoon. So you're going to swish it like you're frosting a cake, and then gather it up and sort of smush it back down. You really want all this color to be one solid color together. All right, so this color I have here is definitely orange, but I want to make sure I see a significant difference between these three. I have an orange, a yellow orange, and a red orange. The orange in the middle you want to be like perfect middle orange. And the red orange, you want to lean towards the red side. The yellow orange, you want it to lean towards the yellow side. Let me go ahead and grab a color wheel so that is complete so you can see the difference. All right, so if we take a look at this completed color wheel, we can sort of see where we're going, right? So I have this orange here, and I want to compare and figure out where it lands on my color wheel and make adjustments as needed. I would strongly encourage you to find this in the classroom. I have several of them around the room for you to compare, because you really do need to sort of compare to learn the differences between the colors. For instance, this color I have here is definitely orange like we said, but it's sort of leaning, it's close to orange, but it is leaning a little to the yellow-orange side. So either I can add yellow to this to make it brighter for yellow-orange, or I can add more red to it to push it towards the orange. So I'm gonna do both. So I'm gonna take this color and I'm gonna move it up top. I'm gonna take some of it down here and add a little red, like the tiniest amount of red, to make it a true orange, and then I'll save that and add a little yellow to it to go here. Okay, you don't wanna waste paint when you already got some here. So let's mix up my true orange first. So I'm gonna take a little bit more red, and when I mean a little, I mean a little. And I'm gonna add, I think that probably was even too much. I'm gonna add to this, move that around. I have some paint on my knife, so I really wanna clean that off. Move that around until it's truly mixed up. And it's a slight difference, but if I compare it against my completed color wheel, it does look like that middle orange. So I'm going to take my brush, should be clean and dry. You don't wanna go from the water to the paint. I see a lot of students do that, and then we have like a watercolor color wheel. Make sure you dry it off by squeezing. Load up that color and paint that in. Take your time, enjoy the process. If I'm moving too fast for you, stop this video, pause it, catch up. That's the beauty of these kinds of videos, right? Paint in your shape. Make sure you have a nice thicker application of paint. Don't make it too thin. There's our bell. And when you're done, even though we're gonna keep painting, make sure you wash your brush in between every color. Not because it's gonna mix too much with the next one, but because it's gonna dry on your brush. And once this paint dries on your brush, you are done, man. It is rock hard. So I'm gonna use this, I'm gonna really wash this out. And then I'm going to work on this yellow orange. I'm going to add some yellow to it to push it to match this one over here a little bit more. And then we'll move into our red orange. Remember to dry that. Put that off to the side. All right, so let's go ahead and mix up that yellow orange color. We're gonna take more of that yellow and mix it to the orange that we already got to get that yellow orange. As you can see, my setup's a little different. I actually went ahead and did this, but my camera wasn't rolling. So I'm gonna repeat that process. I grabbed another piece of palette paper. It's kind of nice when those things happen because you might have like used up all your orange and you need to start from scratch. So here you go. If not, take the orange you do have. Maybe I will grab some of it. You can see it's already sort of dry. Well, there's a little left. Grab the orange you do have and you're gonna add just a little bit more yellow. You can always add more. You cannot take it away, right? So I'm gonna add a little bit at a time. That might not have been enough. You want to see a significant change in color, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Just checking my camera now. A little paranoid there. A little bit more. Remember, you're not stirring. You're grabbing all the paint up, smushing it down, and like frosting that cake. All right. Mix it up. You want to see a significant change between your colors here. So if I have this on my knife and I kind of come over here, I can compare it, and it looks like the natural transition between yellow and orange. I can also compare it against a color wheel that is complete, like this one, and that looks like a perfect yellow-orange. So I'm going to, well, I need to get the paint off my knife for a second. Then I'm going to load up my brush and paint in that section. Next, we're going to do our red-orange, and then we're going to repeat this process using blue with both yellow and red. Don't be afraid to turn your paper so that you can get a good angle. You want to be mindful of your craftsmanship. It's a good time to practice using this brush, but I am grading you on your colors. Okay, so now I'm going to wash that brush out, and we're going to attempt to make a nice red-orange. So I think the red-orange is one of the hardest colors to get with this paint because it really is hard to sort of find that mid-tone between those. If you take a look, I can tell that this is red, and I can tell that this is a red-orange, and this is an orange. There's like a value change between them, right? We're looking for that color, but sometimes it's hard to know if you got that color or not. I'm gonna take the rest of this paint that I have for my yellow-orange, and to jump all the way over here, I do need to add a significant amount of red. But we know that red is powerful, so we'll see. We might need to add some yellow back, I don't know. We don't know until we mix it up sometimes. But the more paint you mix, the more familiar you're gonna get with these paints in particular. If you try a different brand of paint, you're gonna wanna become familiar with that also. So we take a look at that. That is a red-orange. Yeah, actually, looks like it matches. You do wanna see a different tone from the red itself. So I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna put a little down here, and I'm gonna see if I can tell. Because if I can't really tell, then I'm gonna add a little yellow. I might add a little bit of yellow to that just to make it very different, you know, a little bit. You sort of need to eyeball it, get used to the colors themselves, all that good stuff. All right, that one feels a little bit better. I'm gonna push that off my brush, grab some paint. Not a huge difference, but it feels better to me. All right, so you're painting that color in. Again, please compare it against one of the color wheels in the room or to what I have here on screen. There we go. I should see a transition from that yellow all the way down to that red. All right, so now we are done with our oranges. We're gonna move, let's do greens at this point, why not? And we do wanna clean a little bit. I definitely wanna clean my brush and my knife. Now is a good time to get a new piece of palette paper if you've used up your whole section. Or if you're using something at home, if you're doing this at home and not in my classroom, maybe clean your palette off or go to a new piece or section of your palette. But we do wanna clean off, I'm going to clean my knife by sort of like pulling it through my paper towel. I can sometimes dip it in the water, that helps a little, but you don't want to sort of get water everywhere, right? Really clean this off, because if you get orange in blue especially, it's going to sort of mute the colors. They're not going to be as pure as they need to be. All right, I'm going to grab a new piece. I'm going to use that yellow, I think. I'm going to grab a new piece of palette paper. Here. And I'm going to pull over this color wheel here. If you take a look, we're going to start with blue. We're going to paint in our blue solid, and then we're going to be mixing our greens, green, yellow green, and blue green. To mix a yellow green, you're going to add more yellow to the mix. To mix a blue green, you're going to add more blue to the mix. But the challenge first is to get that middle green tone. All right, so I'm going to grab some blue. Use a clean knife to take some blue from one of your cups. Grab some of that blue. And, first thing I'm going to do, paint my blue square. Now this blue paint, if you take a look, it's a little different in consistency from the others. That's not because of the blue itself. That's because this paint sat through the entire pandemic, to be honest. And so when we do our projects, if you're in class now with me, I'll make sure that the paint itself is not chunky. Do you see this? It's a little chunky. I'm going to use it for this because I want to use it up and buy new paint for us. If you're watching this in the future, far away from our pandemic, congratulations, you made it out, and I should have some nice new paint for you. But this paint's a little older, so it does a couple different things. If you notice that with your own materials at home, worth reinvesting into some new paints. All right, so there's my blue. I'm gonna add another coat to that when it dries a little. Do you see how it's a little streaky? And then I'm gonna wash that brush. Pull that paint out. And we'll start to mix our greens. So I'm going to grab my yellow and I'm going to bring it over here as much as I can. And I'll put that to the side. And then for us, for this one, we're going to try and mix that middle green. And you're going to notice, just like we talked about for red versus yellow, this yellow is going to be a weaker tone than, or a weaker color than the blue. The blue is going to sort of take over quite a bit. So I'm going to add just a little yellow, and I'm going to just add a tiny touch of blue. I'm going to see what it does. I can always add more. I can't take it out of the mix. So I'm going to mix that up. You see how that blue is kind of gritty? That's because this paint is a little older. I apologize. If we take a look after we mix it totally, sort of squishing those pigments up, that color, what do you think? What do you think we should call that color? So take a look here. Where does that sit? That's right here. That's that yellow green. So I can keep adding blue to get to my green, but I think I'm going to steal some of this right here, right now. I'm going to take some of that and I'll paint that in because I have it, right? So sometimes you can push it. Sometimes you should just use what you got if you have a color that you need. Paint in that yellow green. This paint's a little bit thinner too than looking, so I'm sort of trying to add a couple coats, get a nice solid color. And then wash that brush. A lot of brush washing today. Need some paper towel. And then let's go ahead and mix some more blue. We're gonna try and go like naturally down the side. So I'm gonna add some more blue, be a little bit braver, add a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more than that. It might be too much though, we'll see. When you're learning, you make a lot of mistakes in terms of like how much of one color you need. But let's see, if that is our color, you look at this one. Yeah, that looks good for that green, right? Just want to make sure it's fully mixed. All right, gonna load this up and paint in my green space. Here. Do you want to see a difference? This green should just be green. It shouldn't lean meaning it shouldn't like lean towards the blue or lean towards the yellow. Okay. Wash that brush. Wonder how many times I'm going to say that. And I'm going to go for my blue-green now, and I'm going to add some more blue. Now if you think of these greens in terms of the seasons, that yellow green is going to be like a very spring-like green, right? Some new growth green. This middle green, or just green, is going to be more of a, you know, early summer color, where this one is sort of a late summer green, or maybe an evergreen, like a pine tree, if you want to think of it that way. All right, load up that brush once you get your color. Maybe check it against what you got. That looks like it matches. It's a good blue-green. And paint that in. If I'm going too fast, if you need more time to get your colors correct, rewind this. All right, watch me do it again, or pause it. I start to move a little quick, I know, and I'm sorry. I'm just excited. All right, paint that in. Okay, you see what I mean about that blue? I might add another layer of that blue right here, right now. Don't forget to wash that brush. And if you take a look at the color of my water, it's like brown. When you mix blue, yellow, and red, your primaries, all together, you're gonna get this like muted brown, sometimes black. That's how you make black with these kinds of colors. We're gonna talk more about that when we get to our tints and shades. I'm gonna add another layer of blue. Sort of make that a little bit more solid. It's bothering me. Oh, I went outside the line. It's okay. Wash that brush, and then we're gonna make our violets. So I'm gonna wash my knife as well. For violet or purple, use either word in here with me. You are going to be using blue and red. Blue and red makes purple or violet. If we take a look, we have violet. This one closer to the red, leaning towards red, is red violet. And then this one over here, which is closer to blue, is blue violet. So I think I might, for the sake of the video, if you've got space, please use it. But because of our video, I'm gonna grab another new piece so you can see it nice and clear. And I already have my red and blue painted in, so I'm gonna aim towards that violet. If you take a look at this color wheel here, it's hard to tell sometimes the difference between those three violets. These paints, this Blick acrylic paint, and these ones that we're mixing, they get a little heavy here with our violets. But I want to point out that the violet itself is a very mid-tone color here. It is not too blue, and it's not too red. The red violet has that pink tone to it. Do you see it? And the blue violet here has a more of a navy kind of tone to it here. So just be mindful that you really do take a moment and mix each of these three and make sure that they are all different. If you need to paint over them, let them dry. If you need to write an arrow, that's fine. Just make sure you get them right, because this is a little bit of a challenge. I'm gonna grab my blue over here, and then wiping off my knife between colors, I'm gonna grab my red. I'm gonna grab some of that red down here, and I'm gonna add a little bit of blue. Now, we said that the yellow is weaker compared to the red and the blue. For this combo, blue and red, I think the blue's a little bit stronger, but you should see for yourself. All right, I'm gonna mix these up. Let's see what we get when it's fully mixed. I added a little bit of blue to this, and we've got sort of like a burgundy tone. This is a red violet, but I want to push you a little bit more. I'm gonna add a little bit more blue. Maybe a little bit more. You can always add more, you can't take it away. There it is. You can see that like undertone that's sort of sticking to the wax paper or the palette paper. That's a good indicator of what's going on. So that tone there, that is our red violet. On screen it might be a little dark looking, but that undertone you can see on there, that looks good. All right, so I'm gonna take my brush and I'm gonna load it up and paint it in here. Now, why did I start with red violet? Why didn't I go for violet or blue violet? That's just what I made, right? So sometimes you gauge what you got, see if it works somewhere. I don't want you to do more work, right? Make your life a little bit easier. Paint that in. Okay. It's really dark on this paper, isn't it? In our next worksheet, we're going to do tints and shades and complementary pairs. That's when we add black and white tint. If I added, oh, got some paint on there. If I added white to this, it would brighten it up. You could sort of see that difference well, but we're not going to do that just yet. All right, I have my red violet. To make violet and blue violet from it, I'm going to add more blue. So I'm going to pull that off to the side. I don't want to do everything. I want to just take a little bit so I can do this a little bit faster. I'm going to add some blue, fully mix it up and see that undertone. You see it? That is a really nice mid-tone purple. So I'm going to grab that purple there, or violet as we're calling it. Paint that in. Again, always compare. Compare to the video here, compare to the piece in real life. And paint that in. And then we leave one more after this. One more. Make sure you're washing that brush. Oops. Okay. And our last color is blue violet. So I'm going to take, I might take a little bit more because I'm sort of low. And I'm going to add a significant amount of blue to this, right there. Look at that. Oh, do I need more? I feel like I'm going to add a little bit more blue. Let's pull this one over so you can see. A little bit more blue. You want that navy? There it is, I think. What do you think? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to paint in that last color right here. You see that navy peeking through? There we go. Okay. Last thing I'm gonna do, wash that brush. Really try and work that paint out. You shouldn't need to go to the sink, to be honest, but you can. If you are gonna work this in the sink, I suggest, pro tip, don't just hold your brush under the water. Put it in your hand and do one of these and sort of wiggle it around to clean that out. And then when you're done, always sort of like, you know, put your brush bristles back to where they need to be. All right, so there is our color wheel. If you take a look, it's at 12 points, 1 point per color. And you need to make sure that you learn how to clean up now. All right, so that's the end of this video. For cleanup, try and do as much cleaning at your desk because we do only have that one sink in our room. Oh, there's my lights. I guess we're done. Wash what you need. This you can throw away, and ask me where to put this, either on the drying rack or at your table to dry, and then I move it for you. It's pretty much dry. If you feel it, it's pretty much dry, except for maybe those violets. All right, guys, thank you so much for working with me. I'm excited to move into tints and shades with you for our next video lesson. Let me know what you need, and I'll see you later.